This is one of my 800 white papers. I have many, many, many of these theses, after 30 years in the scholarly path. I've produced a great deal. And this is just the germination, or the place where I want to start looking at the alternative aesthetic. It's a sacred science. This is a paper on organization structural outline, right? I typed this up in 2015 and I gave it to a group, but I wrote it in 2009. This alternative aesthetics, their goals are clear. Well, good evening, folks, and this is your Sensei Al Bob on my channel Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, and this is getting close to our 300th show. And I have themes all throughout these, the 40 days and 40 nights, and we still haven't hit the 40th day. We're still kind of just outside it. And the other frame was the open window of opportunity that comes every now and then with love's essential co-creation. And every time we come close to this open window, there is a catastrophic red flag. We have wars, the Boer War, the French Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars, the European imperial travesty of genocide, the Spanish American War, the Indian Wars, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, and then a myriad of little inflagrations where thousands have died, like, the Yemeni War or the Vietnam conflict or the Korean, it was like a like a speeding ticket. Then we had 9/11. We had the Challenger disaster. We had you name the disasters, and they were there. And they were all there as distractions. They were all caused on purpose. They weren't just, oops, what happened here? Oh, I don't know. Golly gee, like the Spanish flu or the Irish potato famine. These were all manufactured. Because during the Civil War, the North had their own slaves. They were called the Irish immigrants. And at least in the South, it's like get rid of that old Chevy. But, and what's going on in, Virginia, the most racist state of the Union. And, that's where our founding fathers came from. Jefferson, he couldn't get rid of his slaves because he was in love with them. Hey, Dragon, good to see you, buddy. And so people, constantly go on about, oh, let's hear some stories about the paranormal, and people go and watch all the all the shows that I put on John Birmingham's channel. It's John's channel, but all of those stories basically are my life. They're not owned by John, And I have to thank John for sticking his phone in my face 24/7 for a year because I wouldn't have, I was not very impressed with, social media because I just looked at what Facebook was. And, I was at Cornell between 88 and 91. And that was at the height of the Star Wars flagration of technology. And Cornell built this gigantic black monolith called the Math Center. And it was a DARPA project, 100%, $140 million project where they had hundreds of Cray computers neural netted. That was the first industrial size version of artificial intelligence, right? And they were working out all the algorithms, how to knock things out of space, right? And not only that, how to, underneath the football field at Cornell, they have a particle accelerator. And Larry Chump, Donnie Chump's uncle, who basically murdered Nikola Tesla and stole all his secrets. Just go look for Donnie Chump's uncle, and Nikola Tesla. Go Google that. And how'd you guys like my representation of Donnie Chump the day after his address to the sock puppets? The best legislators money can buy. And look, again, just go look at the folk at the Virginia legislature, the governor, the second guy in charge, the third guy in charge. They're all sleazebags. There isn't a single, and even the Republicans who come in fourth, fifth, and sixth, they will be indicted too. There is no one in elected office who isn't a sock puppet, who isn't one of the usual suspects. And we have the legislatures that we deserve because we do not hold anyone accountable, right? Now, I make fun of everything. I'm trying to be the Will Rogers of the 21st century. That's where I got Cowboy Bob, right? And I'm going to bring that character back. I haven't learned how to rope a steer. I was out west and I never that. All I did was, I milked cows and I brushed down horses. And that's how I became friends with all my relations. I talked to the snakes, I talked to the birds of prey, and I clicked sticks with the insects. And this is what we have to do. We have to understand all our relations, not be egocentric and, ooh, I'm so much better than everybody else. Ooh. No, sorry. Not we are all our relations. 10 generations from the past, our ancestors, and 10 generations into the future, our children. And we don't seem to give a rat's ass about them. Either way. No one listens and no one cares. I just want mine, mine, mine. Give me mine. It's all, I deserve it. I'm entitled to it. And I love, after watching the senators, the Republican Senate and Congress, give the largest tax jack off to the uber rich. This will help our economy. I don't think so. I studied economics. I studied statistics. I was a demographer. I look at trends. And the bottom line, I remember my first class in statistics, and my teacher said, "Okay, kids, I'm going to learn you some how to lie with numbers." So they say, the most people employed ever. Don't think so, because they're not even counting the people who aren't employed. Anyway, so we're 16 minutes into it, and I hope you go back and read or watch the beginning, because I'm starting a new series. And the new series is called Overstanding. Who wants to be underneath it, the standing? Overstanding above the paranormal. And the stories are going to be, right? And so they're going to be, just like my novels, cuts. And tonight is the first cut. And it is titled Meeting of Remarkable Creatures in the Imaginary Mirror of Madame Ogerkluver. Now, I told you that, I grew up as a little peanut, and I was the youngest of a big brood. And my mama, she was a triple Capricorn, ergo, she ruled the world. She was the admiral of the Navy. My daddy was a, colonel in the Air Force, and so he was just the captain of the ship, right? He just steered the boat whichever way my mom wanted it to go, right? And basically, as the little peanut, I just observed while my brothers and sisters, I'm not going to do that. Can't tell me what to do. Me, my daddy would bark out an order, and I'd say, yes, sir, right away, sir. And then I'd go run off and do whatever the heck I wanted, because my daddy, being the colonel, never, ever checked up on squat. And my mama, being God, she was omnipotent. So she, watching everything and controlling everything and being in charge of everything, she kind of always missed the small details. And I was the smallest of details. So much so that my grandma took care of me for most of my on life of 0 to 6. And I grew up in an area that was everybody. There was no other there. We were a salad bowl. We weren't a melting pot. We were salad bowl. All these individual flavors right on top of each other, tasting very yummy. So I learned, to respect my elders. I learned early that I had 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I listened more than I talked, because my grandma took me around. She knew everybody, and everybody of really importance. People who knew things, experienced things, story, taught me how to be the griot that I am today. A friend of mine called me up from Chi-Town, and he's a very interesting man. He has survived the most unsurvivable things, and he still keeps a good sense of humor. He's a great filmmaker, and he loves my he said that I was one of the best cinematographers he knew because I understood light. I knew how to light things. I mean, look at me now. I'm illuminated quite nicely with one friggin' light bulb, right? And that's because as a theater lighting designer and electrician, I knew the limitations. You couldn't just stick. I was an ME of a Broadway show that had the what can I say? The historical reference of having the most lighting instruments hung on the grid of a theater in Broadway in ever, right? We had 1,200 instruments. The average Broadway show has maybe 175 to 250 instruments. It's had 1,200, right? So being not only the design, I didn't design it, I hung it, and I was the ME, master electrician, and I also took the auspices of being the best boy, meaning running the crews. And I only did because they paid me ungodly amounts of money to do it and to make sure it didn't blow up and kill everyone. And that show, right, cost more money to put on. I mean, it was straight out of the producers, These guys spent more money than God had, and it closed in one night because the play was called Gotta Go Disco, and seeing that I was the god of disco lighting after doing xenons, making the Frankenstein monster of the Edison Theater come alive for Tony Two Toes and Bobby Bentnose, two made men who didn't want to end up like Bugsy Siegel, dead in the desert. They had to get this thing working. They had about 4 other electricians. And, the exit lights worked and the lights in the men's room worked, but the disco lights did not blink. And so I, on opening night, was dressed in a gold thong, wearing a Japanese kimono, wearing wooden shoes, and having 2 titty dancers hold paper umbrellas over me while I adjusted the relays of the monster that caused the flying saucer of xenons to go up and down and spout out, fog and blinking lights. And that was me, the master of xenons, the master of the Tunnel Club, and the master of the Wetlands, and the master of lots of other nightclubs, lanes, and danceterias, and gaseteria, and the Mud Club, and I was the ME, right? So there I was, as a little peanut. And by the time I was 6 or 7, I walked around New York City on my own because you could. And people didn't ever notice me. And I developed the art of being invisible. And years later, when I was in Putney, Vermont, living with my sensei who was teaching us martial arts, psychic jujitsu, he said it wasn't to win a fight, it was to never get in one. To know what was coming 3 blocks away so you could take the innocent away and protect them and not be there when harm came looking for you. So that was my early teachings, and I was a great student. I was a great adept at birth. I survived death at birth. Only because I was a lucky bastard. And I have been a lucky bastard ever since. That is why I have survived 6 other deaths. He's dead. No, he's not. He's almost dead. Not quite dead. We bring him back and he'll be fine. And every time you die like that, there's a little bit of you that gets, cut away, And so you have to navigate life in a way that serve something more than yourself. And that's how you have a life that's worth living. That way you don't go until it's time for you to go. I know I'm not dying anytime soon. And once I do die, I am not going to be brought back because it'll be my time. Right now, it's not my time. I got things to do. One of them is to talk to you, my cadre. Right? One of them is to bring forth from the cadre the chorus, those who speak here at the chat, right? And one of them is to bring all of my relations into being the shock troops of love's co creation. So say we all. Anyway, I've been thinking about this. So, this is my new series, right? And so, tonight is the first cut, the first installment of the new series, Above Overstanding Above the Paranormal, right? What is the paranormal? It's the normal that's parallel. It's like looking into a mirror. So say we all, Dragon. And that is where we get the understanding to see the reflection. It's always backwards. So whatever you see, it's always the opposite. Whatever you told, when LBJ said, we're building a great society, he was saying, we're going to kill you motherfuckers, right? When he said, we're going to, take everything and make everything fair, I mean, he's taking everything away from you. Why did all of those Southern racist Democrats, and they kind of euphemistically call them Dixiecrats, sign on for the Great Society, sign on for the Voting Rights Act, sign on to seemingly give black folk, what they should have gotten 120 years before? Well, that's because through Jim Crow, the black folk had to basically stay within their own boundaries of their own social, cultural, and economic situation to the point that they built themselves into the seventh largest economy on the world. And LBJ said to those Dixiecrats, listen, you don't ride the bus. You don't eat at the counter, and you don't give two hoots about any of those white trailer trash folk. You look at them as worse than the black folk, because at least the black folk, you trust them enough to, change your underwear and clean your toilets and take care of your kids. You never let the trailer trash do that. And let's steal all their money. Let's take their property. Let's kind of cahoots them into voting for us. And that's the paranormal. It's the opposite of what you're seeing. You know what this means? You know what, in England, you know what this means? It means fuck you. You know what this means? Victory, meaning the rich man has victory by fucking you. So say all of those dickheads. So there I was, a little peanut, and at 7 I went back to my folk. And I was scared of nothing except my family, because they were like a group of feral wolves. I said, what the heck? I want to go back to my grandma's. What am I doing here? Well, I needed to be exposed to my family. I was blessed to not being with them from 0 to 6.5. And by that time, I had become awake, right? But I had to see where I came from, what my genetic predilections was of my mama and my daddy. And they were living at this time in a place called Old Brookville, which is where the uber rich folks, there are all these estates and farms right on the border of Nassau County and Suffolk County. Suffolk County is east, going towards the Hamptons. But on the northern side of Long Island, right? So I went to this school. That was an interesting school, and it gave me exposure to the understanding of what it was. But that area had some amazingly paranormal experiences. This place called Glen Cove, Garden City. This was like where slave trade had been going on in the 1790s, And you have to realize who started the slave trade but the Dutch, right? Folk from Connecticut, good Christian folk from Connecticut started the slave trade in the United States, not Southerners. But you look at today's governor, Mr. Norton, or whatever his name is, and the other two chuckleheads, they've all done amazingly bad, very, very bad things within the construct of politically correctness, within the construct of what is right and wrong by the uber rich, not so bad, you know. Right now, the uber rich love eating children as long as they're cooked correctly, you know. They're like Adolf Hitler. He loved dogs and children as long as they were cooked correctly. So I diverge, as Griot always does, to like distract you to the point where when I do hit you with the storyline, it goes straight into your cerebellum, right into that bread pan. Then it rumbles around for a few days, and then you start to go, "What the heck was that about? And why am I thinking this way?" And I'm uncomfortable with what I thought was normal, and now I'm seeing things I could never see because they were on the periphery. And that's where you see the paranormal kids. You know, what is that shadow on the side, and those footsteps in backs that never catch up and pass you? That is the paranormal. The things that are scariest are the ones you don't see. My grandma took me to see this movie because when I went back to my folks, I couldn't get out of bed when I had to take a piss. And when I was at my grandma, not a problem. But I felt the energetics of my family and all that was going on. Not on the surface that you could see, but what was going on underneath. The fact that my dad, you know, had killed hundreds of millions of people by being in the Air Force, bombing them into the Stone Age, getting SAC ready to annihilate the whole planet. You know, that energy was just ripe in my family. And my mama wanted to rule the world, you know, through the Catholic Church, you know, and she was all up for the Spanish Inquisition. But it wasn't on the surface. Everything looked just nice. We had always a new car, and the house was painted just right, and there were, you know, flowers in the flower boxes on the windows, and my mama had all kinds of knickknacks. You know, it looked just fine. But I could sense what was underneath. My brothers and sisters don't remember anything of that time. I remember everything because I was awake, and they were unconscious. Now, that's not to say anybody was bad or good. It's just the way it was. Because there is no bad or good, because we live in Lucifer's universe of illusion. This is a sandbox for our souls to learn how to step up to our free will and to freely co-create with love's co-creation. That's what it's about. Nothing more, nothing less. We're not going to purgatory. We're not going to hell because hell's already here. Purgatory's already here. I see people, you know, with their anchor dropped and they're just going around and around and around, doing what Freud said was insane. And what was that? Doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Oh, but I want this to happen, so I'll do it again, even though for the last 10 years I've always been rejected. Maybe one more time, I will get what I want. It may not even be what I want because when I had it, I didn't want it. But now that I don't have it, I want it now. No. Sorry to say, baby, you've dropped your anchor and you're just going around in insanity. And again, that is the paranormal, you know, taking victory and getting fucked by it, you know. So that's where we is, right? And the story is starting right here at 33 minutes and 33 seconds, right? So I won't fill in all the stuff from when my parents moved back into the city and moved into Manhattan House across the street from, Hunter College, about 3 blocks from Central Park, about 6 blocks south of the Museum of Art, MoMA, and MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, about 7 blocks, you know, south of us, and the Whitney were about 10 blocks from us, and the Guggenheim about 15 blocks from us. And in those days, those museums were taken care of by rich people, so you could just go in on certain days, right? And other days, you just kind of threw a dime in the box, and that was good enough. And just down the street, just across the street on Park Avenue from Hunter College, was the Council for Foreign Relations. And that organization, I behoove you all to go Google and, go on Wikipedia and see what the Council on Foreign Relations. And there was a man in there named Quigley, Dr. Quigley. And I just kind of strolled in there because they had this, like, every door was, like, locked up, like you couldn't get in. But there was one door, one magic door that was always open to the public. And on the top of it, it said Automation House. And you went in there and you were exposed to what the future was going to be like. It was just like the 1965 New York World's Fair where it had the House of Future, the GE place. It's a small world after all, and Pepsi Cola will sell you everything. Anyway, I walked in there virtually every day because they had all these. They had all this stuff modern. This is like 1966, 67, and they had all the stuff that's just coming out now that you could play with. Right? They had push button phones that hadn't been around yet. They had basically Motorola had wireless telephones. They had automated automobiles run on batteries. They had, time travel. They had, faster than light. They had, gravomagnetics. They had Tesla. They had, you name it, they had it. But nobody was in there except me, and I was playing with everything. You could play, you push the buttons, you could do whatever they wanted. And there was a guy in there every now and then, and his name was Billy Kluver. And Billy was the man who brought European art to the United States. And he curated a show called The Armory Show. Go Google The Armory Show. What is now considered highbrow art, he single-handedly brought to America. Right? And he changed the cultural dynamic of it all. And he was a guy, he got a Nobel Prize because he was Mr. Radar. He was Mr. Microwave. And during World War II, he worked at the Rad Lab, right? And he worked with a guy named Loran. Go look him up. And Billy, he and his crew took a microwave horn and turned it inside out, and he listened to outer space, and he discovered the background radiation of the universe. He was listening to Lucifer, and he was part of every secret organization there was. So I used to go in there virtually every day. I could go in there and play with all this stuff, and he would be there most of the time. And he was like, he looked like, when Ringo played the conductor. He was sitting behind the decks, and it was like, going in, it was like a gallery of all of this stuff. And what it was the Council on Foreign Relations was looking for interesting people. And man, I just hung out in that place like nobody's business. And Billy Kluver became one of my mentors until the day he died. And I was maybe 30-something when he died. And all of the people from that point on were synchronistically connected. Because I kept blowing things up in my parents' apartment, and they didn't like it. I'd take the toaster oven apart and, put it back together and be like 20 parts that I had left over, and I'd just throw them away. And then my mom would put the bread in there and hit the button, and burst into flames. It did that to virtually every appliance in my house until my mom couldn't take it anymore and walked me down 3rd Avenue, walked me into Mike Stoll's electric shop. Do something with this boy. I can't take it anymore. And Mike Stoll, I was about 10 or so, and Mike Stoll had 5 daughters and no sons. He saw me, and I was his son. Mike Stoll, I knew him until the day he died when I was about 25. And he treated me, he was more my father than my daddy, right? He treated me with respect. He led, he taught me by example. And so he took me into that shop and he said, okay, the first thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be hanging out with Grandpa Stoll, my daddy. And he said, Grandpa Stoll had the first master electrician's license in the world, in New York City, in the United States. He started the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. He started Local 3. He started IATSE and NABEF. And IATSE was the theater electricians, NABEF was the movie electricians. And he said, you're going to hang out with Grandpa Stoll, and he's going to teach you what's what, right? And then by the time he lets you go, you should be good to go to work with us. And I will take you out and we'll work on jobs together. So that's where I became an electrician. That's where I learned how to listen. I mean, my grandma really taught me how to listen, but they really did. And especially Grandpa Stoll, because he did everything, knew everybody. Everyone owed him a favor. And he loved me. And my basic job for the first year and a half was to be with Grandpa Stoll all the time and make sure he didn't walk in front of a bus, because he would get talking about stuff and he'd walk into trees, walk into people, and he'd walk out in the middle of the street if I didn't kind of grab him. Grandpa, no. And he had the keys to every building. He had wired the Empire State Building. He had wired the Chrysler Building, and he wired the Chrysler Building with Nikola Tesla. And there was an induction coil on the roof and one in the basement, and it had no wires. It was a 0-point energy module. Every light there was a neon light. Every motor there was that lifted the elevators and the pumps and et al. Were all synchronous induction motors. And this was in the 30s, right? And the only reason why that didn't stick was J.P. Morgan went to Mr. Chrysler and handed him an envelope full of pictures of Mr. Chrysler. Mr. Chrysler had, a few, what we would call inappropriate tastes, like little boys and animals. And Mr. J.P. Morgan had photos of this and said, okay, very nice building you made here, Mr. Chrysler, but take all that Tesla crap out and put Edison wires in. And that's where we've been for the last 150 years. Our technology is a million years ahead of. They have time travel. They have been to every solar system. There's a thing called solar. The Nazis, Germany was bombed. The country of Germany was again sown as a chump for the New World Order. And they were bombed into the Stone Age, but the Nazis won. And through Operation Paperclip, we brought 70,000 of those sick fucks into our government. And that's why our government is the way it is. I mean, it was always screwed up, the Civil War, the Indian Wars, where we genocided close to 100 million indigenous people. I mean, these are, go read Howard Zinn's American History, Go read Quigley's book, go to the CFR, Dr. Quigley, go read that. And a guy I worked with at the CFR, None Dare Call It Conspiracy by Gary Allen. Go read that book, right? Go read I Was a Corporate Hitman by John what's-his-name, right? And start educating yourself. I've been telling you a lot of stories, guys, and, wake up. I was at a university a couple of weeks ago, and a person, the head of a department, brought me in to just talk to some students. They were about to graduate. And I went down the line. I think I've already mentioned this, but I kind of read everybody and went and looked at. So you're going to be what? Okay, you're a historian. You ever hear of a guy named Thucydides? Who's that? Well, it just happened to be the daddy of written history. You've never read Thucydides? No. How about Joseph Campbell? Did you ever read Joseph Campbell? No. I just went through a whole line of people that if this person who's graduating in a few weeks was going to go on to a career in academia, um, you know, um, as a historian, and she was going on to grad school because she couldn't afford to pay off her college loans, and by going to grad school, she could roll them over and just get deeper into debt. Slavery. Then there was a girl who was called, wait, I'm a brain scientist. Oh, really? Have you ever heard of the Tavistock Institute? What's that? Have you ever heard of a guy named LeConte? Who's that? Two people who invented modern mind science, meaning who realized, it was an electrical device, developed the little electrodes that measured that. That's definitely Tavistock Institute, were instrumental in developing the magnetic resonant thing for your brain and CAT scans for your brain. And this person who's an expert on brain science didn't know any of it, right? And there was a girl who's going to go on, and all these folks, because they hadn't gotten, I said, so where are you going? You're going to go get a job? No. I said, well, haven't you done any, an intern? No, we never did that. And we try to get one now, but we can't get a paid intern. I said, yeah, because you got to get the other internship when you're a freshman, because no one's going to pay you squat even to be an intern unless they know what you can do. And you can't just, I graduated from this snotty school. Give me a job. I'm entitled. Sorry, not going to happen. So they're going on to grad school. I said, so in grad school, have you signed yourself up for any internships? Oh, no. That's, just because you get into a grad school doesn't mean it's worth shit. You have to go there for a reason, meaning you have to know a professor, be involved in a project, get your chops, and it's called paying your dues. Well, we don't need to do that. We're entitled. Anyway, I kept telling them about things that they should know. And I said, now, don't believe me. You've got those little magic boxes. Go Google. And so they ravenously Googled all the things that were, I was telling them, that were threatening their worldview. And they found that everything I said was true. And so instead of them being brought up by the short hairs, they went and complained to the department chief who brought me there to lecture them. Why did you have him here? He's making us feel uncomfortable. It's inappropriate to have him tell us the truth. This is a liberal arts school. You'd think it was a Jesuit, Spanish Inquisition. And that's where we're at today, right? Everything is so in our face and so balkanized and so, put into a tribal. No one's listening. No one's thinking. No one's seeing that right in front of them. The asteroid is, and I have all these friends who are preppers who are digging pits to go live in a hole and collecting bullets. I said, so can you eat bullets? Anyway, so back to the storyline. So there I was, 10 years old, maybe getting towards 11, working for Grandpa Stoll and hanging out at the Council for Foreign Relations with Billy Kluver, right? And so the Stoll shop is on 3rd Avenue, in the upper 30s. And I would just walk down Lexington Avenue because, You had Park Avenue, which was like nothing. It was just rich people's apartment houses. See, New York City wasn't a city of the rich. There were rich neighborhoods, but majority of the people, New York City was a manufacturing town when I grew up there. So everybody living there were working, in the garment district or the Navy Yard or somewhere manufacturing something. And manufacturing advertising, manufacturing banking, they were every kind of manufacturing. So I would walk down Lexington because Lexington was an avenue, an old time avenue that hadn't been bulldozed down by rich people or real estate tycoons or whatever. And so there are all these really cute buildings from the 1880s through the 1930s, 40s, 50s. And none of them were taller than 6 stories high, right? And none of them were taller than what you could walk up a stairs. That was about 6 stories. Now, there were a few buildings built like the Seagram's building and a few really amazing buildings that were, 20, 30, 40 stories tall that had elevators and glass. And anyway, and they were real pieces of art. But the majority were these old world, it looks like you were in Europe. It looks like you were in Prague. Looks like you were in Brussels. Looked like you were in Berlin, Paris. And I love because all of these shops, all these windows and shops of really, and they had all these curiosity shops, and they had all of these just antique shops and bookshops, tons of bookshops, and I love books. And they had tons of tea shops with great little cakes and teas and smells like you couldn't believe. And there were Polish and German and all kinds of Eastern European restaurants that had amazing smells, right? And I loved walking down that street. And there was this one shop about 4 blocks before I turned east and walked towards the electric shop. And it was this curiosity shop, right? It had nothing and no name, no number, it was just this, it looked like it came from another time. And I would look in, and there was hardly ever anyone in there. There's definitely nobody who looked like they were a salesperson. But for some reason, and it had one of these windows that instead of flat plate glass, it was curved in. So there were no reflections. So you looked through that window, and it looked like there was no window there, right? And it looked like you could reach in and touch it, but you couldn't, right? And had a door within that curved glass that, unless you knew the secret way to get into that door, you couldn't get into that door. It was a mystery, right? So anyway, so for the first few weeks, I went to work and, I hung out with Grandpa Stahl, and he would take me around, and he had his little errands to do, and I just made sure he didn't walk in front of a bus, and he kept walking into places and showing me things. He had the keys. He wired the New York City subway systems because they were wired with DC, and that's why there was DC. Edison was all about DC, and so, Con Edison still had direct current lines in the city, right? And the subways ran on them for years until the mid-'80s. And the problem with DC at that time was it was the highest voltage they had was about 600 volts. So you couldn't transmit it more than 10 miles before the voltage drop would just go to the point where it wouldn't run anything. So they had these things called dynamotors, which was a motor and a generator. So every 5 miles, they would have one of these dynamotor stations where the motor would mechanically turn a generator, which then kind of, and then they had these big facilities along the east side, big coal and bunker oil boilers for steam, and that's why all of Lower Manhattan up to about 45th, up to maybe 60th Street, had steam lines because they could transmit the steam further than they could transmit the electricity. So they have one gigantic boiler making steam for a whole section of Manhattan, which they would pump into pipes, and that they would put generators every here, there, and everywhere. And Grandpa Stoll wired those things in the 1890s, 1880s. And so he had keys to all this stuff. I remember one time we were down in the subway bowels, and he was like, he had keys to everything. And we're, in the depths of him showing me how this thing worked. And the control relays were like Frankenstein. They'd be going in and out and making tremendous amounts of noise. And and this guy comes in and, he's wearing the orange suit. And here's this old guy, in pajamas, and this little 10-year-old kid in a business suit and a camel's hair coat, because that's the only clothes I had. My dad would buy me two new suits and a camel's hair coat and a little camel's hair beanie every year at Brooks Brothers. Anyway, so and that's what I wore to work, And this guy comes in and it's like, what the fuck? And he looks and goes, "Oh, Grandpa Stoll, I didn't know it was you. I'm sorry." And Grandpa was in his pajamas. That's where I got into wearing pajamas myself. See, I still always do, wear pajamas, I think that's where Hugh Hefner picked it up, from Grandpa Stoll. So Grandpa took me all around, all through the underground. We came out one time into this mezzanine. It must have been 300 feet underground. And there were thousands of mole people, homeless people who lived underground and stayed toasty under the steam of Con Edison. And they had, electric everything, and, they, had, stereos. And if you've ever read The Invisible Man, by, what's the guy's name? He's a black guy. It's about black people. It's not a science fiction. What's his name? It's escaping me, but you should read that book. That's one of the greats. Anyway, he has, one of the characters is one of these mole guys living underground, and that was exactly, years later when I was in high school and read that. I can't believe I can't remember the guy's name. Invisible Man. And very famous black author. Anyway, so that was my growing up. And so about 6 or 7 months. And one of the things Grandpa Stoll, he had a sweet tooth. He had a yummy. He loved. He didn't eat a lot, but he knew what was good and where to get it. And everyone owed him a favor. So we'd walk into one of these shops along Lexington Avenue, a bake shop or a coffee shop or one of those Eastern European places. And, he'd have his table over in the corner. "Oh, Grandpa Stoll, come and sit right here." And they would bring out what he liked. He had no menu. They would just bring it out. He kept coming as long as he was hungry. And so I learned to live that way. Again, one of my grandmother's 28 rules, like a millionaire, and not be one. And the other one is to, whatever room you walk into, you own. Another one, never work for anyone who doesn't need you more than you need them. And that was Grandpa Stoll, straight up, right? And the other one is lying, cheating, and stealing has no upside. Don't do it. Unless you have to protect someone else, and only if you can get away with it. And that was Grandpa Stoll, up and down. And another great rule was never ask for permission, because it's a lot easier to apologize. Now, we're in the 21st century and everything is digital, and none of those rules work anymore because everyone lies, cheats, and steals. Just look at our legislature, the best money can buy, the most corrupt there ever was. But that's not saying much, because our legislatures have always been corrupt, have always been on the take. There's never been such a thing as an honest legislature, and if there ever is an individual who tries to do the right thing, they usually end up dead or, blackmailed. Either one. So one day we kind of turn off of 40 whatever street we were on, and we head uptown, And we stop in front of this curiosity shop with a curved window. And Grandpa goes, "Do you ever notice you must walk by here on your way to the shop, don't you? Because I know you walk down Lexington and then go east to our shop. So this is that side of the road. You must go by here. Do you ever wonder what's in there?" And I go, "Yes, this is the most amazing store. How do we get in there?" And he smiles. He goes, "Watch this." So we walk into the curved window, right? Now, you would think this window's curved and there's this glass kind of frame that if you were to step through it, you would like smash it, crash it. No, but we walk through this frame and there's a place in the frame, because of the curved window, you don't see it, but there's a opening that you can walk through. And he walks right through it. And in the glass door, there is a revolving frigging glass. It's all glass. There is no metal. And in that curved frame where there is no reflection, you can't see this thing unless you walk unless you know where that hole in the glass frame is and where the revolving door is, you don't see it. And you have to have faith and just walk right to it and walk into the revolving door and put your hand out until you feel the glass and you just push it around and bingo, you're in the store. Like magic, right? We walk in and it's just covered in the most amazing ancient artifacts that were alive. Statues, paintings, jewelry, devices, alive. And the smells came from other times. It was unbelievable. I mean, you could smell all of the spices of the East. You could smell all the spices and smells of the Orient, India, Africa. You could hear insects. You could hear music. But there were no speakers, there was no radio, and everything changed every step you took. And he just says, "Hold my hand." Before we left the street, he says, "Just hold my hand." So I held his hand, and we walked into this, and we get in the shop, and I'm really holding his hand, and we're walking through, and there's no aisles, no tables, it's like walking through time and space. And we come to this the whole back of the place is a gigantic mirror. And we don't see our own reflection. We're standing right in front of a mirror, and we don't see our own reflection. And we hear a voice that's very distinct. And I don't even know how to describe it. And I hear this voice say, "Gran Pastor, Mike, it's good to see you. You've been away too long." And I turn around, and there's this woman in the most elegant 19th century, looked like a tuxedo, but it was what I think they call a big, long black coat, a white shirt, pleated white shirt with pearl stats, a bow tie that hung down, and she had the longest, beautiful, greenish blonde hair, very greenish blonde hair. And she had eyes that were like opals. And there was no white, just opals, 2 opals, right? And a little button nose, and her complexion was this pink, purple, and she had almost elfin ears, little cute pointed ears, and she was about 4'6". I mean, I was taller than she was, and I was a little peanut. Anyway, and she goes, "And you have brought an adept with you?" And he goes, "Yes." I brought him to meet you. He is my grandson. And she goes, Mike Jr.'s boy? I thought he only had girls. And he goes, no, he's my grandson because I love him, not just because he's of my blood. And she goes, oh, I understand. And she puts out her hand and we shake hands and she goes, it's good to feel you. You have a great heart. And she does a cold reading on me, like, and she was the first person to teach me how to cold read people. How to, she said, everyone's like, she goes, do you have that toy, Mr. Potato Head? And I said, I know what it is. And she goes, well, that is human beings. There are only 6 types, 6 noses, 6 ears, 6. And if you see how each part moves, there's a tell. She explained tells to me and the energetics of people. She taught me to do psychotrauma. She taught me about cranial sacral, and I'm 10 and 11 years old and I'm learning all this esoteric healing arts from her, right? And so we're facing this mirror. We can't see our reflections. And she goes, just follow me, boys. And we walk through the mirror, right through the mirror. And on the other side, the things in her side of the mirror were way more. The stuff in her shop was amazing, but the other stuff was almost unexplainable. And this is what I'm talking about, overstanding, not understanding. She was the first person says, I want you to overstand this. I said, you mean understand? She goes, you don't want to be under anything. She goes, the only way you can understand, the only way you can see is to overstand, have that view. And so when I take you into your Akashic record, and then we go into your superconscious mind, the sanctuary of your own choosing, we go to the meadow and we go to the gazebo, and I have you go up there and I say, take a look. You're overstanding things. You're above. You're getting this over, and like when we're going from the your library, your Akashic record, into your sanctuary of your own choosing, we take the bridge of your id, and you're looking down over the whole thing. That's overstanding, not understanding. And that's why we are overstanding the paranormal, right? And she said the paranormal is the things that are parallel to normal, and there is no normal. And she goes, just like this shop, there's nothing normal in this shop, but it's exactly how it is. Nothing is real. You have to look at the opposite, And she said, whenever any government tells you anything, it's the opposite. So, when they were having the Great Society, it was the worst society. When they were having a new deal, it was the old deal. The same, it was just a rebranding of the same old same. So all aspects have to be taken into perspective from the overstanding. Because if you're understanding, you're being stepped on. You're being lied to. You're not understanding. You're not seeing anything. You're being projected through an illusion of what's going on. So, I would, once I was introduced to Madame Clover, she said, come back anytime, young adept, And she used to also call me Little Owl or Young Owl, And, she was one of the first people to give me understanding above what the normal person could see. Grandpa Stoll showed me things of the material world that weren't what was told to the average person, wasn't advertised in the magazine or seen on the TV or in the movies, right? That was all propaganda. Now, his son, he had a family, he had a business, he had a ton of people employed. So he was not as esoteric. I mean, he understood it. He was the son of Grandpa Stoll, but he didn't want, he wanted to be himself. You wanted to get Mike Jr. mad. If you called him Junior, anybody called him Junior, he would flatten them. And he was a little guy. I mean, Grandpa Stoll was 6'2", and Mike was about 5'8". He was a stocky little Italian guy. And Mike was, tall, elegant Italian guy, right? Except he's always wearing his pajamas, silk pajamas, right? He had silk robes and silk pajamas and these amazing shoes that they were Italian leather. Anyway, and so Madam Olga Kluver said, come back anytime. And she goes, you know how to get through the window now, right? And I said, yes, ma'am. And I always said, yes, ma'am, or madame, She liked being called madame. And so we would go see things in her shop. And there were all these mirrors that we could walk through the mirror and come out into other parts of New York City in other times. And we would be invisible, basically, and we could see things, right? And she could walk into parts of Manhattan, about 10 minutes before time was to catch up with it, or a little time before it happened, a little time after it happened. And so you could overstand things. She would take me and she would show me people and say, well, you go, like there was, we popped out of a window that was in Washington Square. And we popped out of a window that was in a brownstone. And we kind of, instead of opening the door, we came through the window, and it was like walking through the door. But we went through the window, through the glass. We came out of the glass, and we walked down the steps, across the street and into Washington Square. And there were all these old guys who would be playing chess there, and they play it for money, right? And, if they could beat you within 5 minutes, you gave them $10, If it took more than that, it was 20 minutes, they get $5, If you won, they would give you $100. And these look like bums. You did not expect them to have a Benjamin in their pocket, but they would have a roll of cash, right? Anyway, so she takes me through the glass, through the, down there, and we're walking amongst, and no one can see us, right? And we walk up to this old guy who is sitting at one of these, concrete chess tables, and he's reading a book. There's no one. He's got his clocks up there, and he's got his chess set up, and we walk up to him, and we are invisible to everyone. He looks up. He goes, Madam Olga Kluver, good to see you. Oh, I see you have a young owl with you. And I kind of go, this guy can see us. How can this guy see us? She goes, well, he is my old friend, Saint Germain. Germain, I want you to meet a very interesting young man. Oh, yes, I know him. And he kind of goes on about my pedigree, Who am I? He knows Grandpa Stoll. He knows my grandma. He knows, my godfather, Cardinal Cushing. He knows pretty much everything. And she goes, I'm going to leave him with you. I have some errands to run. I'll be back. So she walks off, and no one can see her. I'm sitting with this old guy at the chessboard, and we start talking. And it's really strange because time speeds up, time slows down. Time speeds up, Time slows down. And he keeps picking things out for me to observe. Watch this happen. Because things slow down, and he goes, see that person? Watch what happens. And he starts describing to me the auric personalities of these people. And he goes, Madam Olga Kluver is teaching you how to do cold readings, right? Now I'm going to show you how to do auric readings. And so I go, okay. So I spend unknown amount of time because time is speeding up and it's slowing down, and the sun isn't doing anything. Meaning it's not like doing this, it's just staying right there. And I'm pretty aware that the sun is staying right there. Yes, time is part of the illusion, and that's kind of what he's basically telling me. So I watch, everything he's, I'm not saying much. I'm listening, taking notes, not writing them down, but putting them up here. And in my imaginary mirror, he's talking about every time I think about something, he starts to describe it and telling me how to use it better. Like how to breathe, how to meditate, how to do this, And and he goes, so Madam Olga Kluver comes back from her errands, and she goes, okay, it's time for us to go. Good to see you, Saint. And he goes, Madam. And he goes, a little Al, you can come visit me anytime you want. Just come here at around noon and look which way the sun is going, and where there are no shadows, that's where I'll be. So for the next 30 years or so, I would go visit Saint Germain, right? And I never saw him. I mean, he was there. He had his chessboard. He had the clocks. But every time I came, he wasn't playing anybody. He was reading a book. And we talked. And we played chess sometimes. And we never used the clocks because we would constantly talk. The chess game was just part of the class, meaning he was describing whatever he was describing through the game we were playing, right? The mechanism on how to observe, the mechanism on how to not manipulate people, but to navigate the situation. He was all about navigating the situation because you can't manipulate anything because it's against karmic rules, but you can, navigate the situation for the most positive outcome. And he goes, you have to, serve love's co-creation in a way for not to win, not to lose, but to attain the most positive outcome. And he was one of the people who basically said, never do anything unless you do it for the most positive outcome. Don't do it to be the hero. Don't do it to fix anything. Don't do it to save anything. No, most positive outcome. And he said, within the construct of you have to always go that extra mile for the innocents. You have to be there to protect, you have to be like the doctor, do no harm. And he goes, there are very few doctors who do no harm. You have to be the doctor that does no harm. And so he said, you're most positive. He goes, if you serve love's co-creation, you never have to worry about a job or income or anything. It'll always work out. Not a problem. Be there to serve, right? And once you get to, he said, my age. I said, am I going to get to your age? He laughed. He goes, no one said my age. But once you get older, more mature, more experienced, once you are no longer paying your dues, once you are a sensei, and he's the first guy, I said, sensei? I kind of heard that before. It's like a guru. And I always thought a guru was like demigod. He says, no, those two words are just in their culture and their language. It just means a teacher. But a teacher is the most reverent job you can have. As a parent, as a grown-up, as a mature person within your community, you should be leading by example. You should be a grandma. They go, wait a minute, grandmas are, he says, no, grandma is the most responsible person in the room. And you can be a male and you can be a grandma. And he goes, because All human beings start out as a female. Once you are, fertilized and you're a zygoblast before you become a, a, you know, little, what do they call, a baby in the mother's stomach, you are a female. And then somewhere between the second and fourth week of gestation in your mother's womb, before your mother really, unless she does a test or is very sensitive, doesn't know that she's pregnant, you are a female. And then, second to the fourth week, a gigantic blast of the zygoblast of hormones hits you, and you are either an X or a Y or somewhere in between. And this is the first time I heard about homosexuals. He said, this is where homosexuals and bisexuals and transsexuals and people who don't know what gender they are, it's because they get a blast of hormone, not enough to be a male, less to be a female, but somewhere in between. And that's where these people come from. And they are natural. It's just like people having blue eyes or brown eyes or blonde hair or black hair. This is just a spin of a karmic wheel. And, none of this stuff is something that someone would choose. It's just what they're handed. And what you're handed with is what is your test to see what you can navigate through. And that's what life's about. It's not about winning or losing or being successful or having money or any of the above. Those things are irrelevant. It's what you learn, how you can navigate, how you move forward to ascend, to be awake to your consciousness of free will, and you choose. Because most people are just making a choice of the illusion, whether to have, Charmin or sandpaper as toilet paper, whether to have, cheap ketchup or Heinz, and it's all the same, there are, within the material world, it's an illusion. You're not choosing anything. You're just being susceptible to propaganda or manipulation. You're being a mud puppet. Anyway, so over the years, and when it was the right moment for me to understand something, I would go through, I'd walk through Washington Square Park a lot. I lived off of McDougal Street, which is, one of the streets that are one of the corners of Washington Square. And I would walk through Washington, especially, when I wanted to cop a nickel bag, I would, that was a place you could go, and the cops never got anybody, because rich people went there to cop their nickel bag of whatever. And I would go through that park a zillion times a week. And only a handful of times would I see Saint Germain. And Saint Germain, and I've met Jesus Christ, and they are here. Jesus ain't coming back. He never left. That's why we're still here. I mean, I've been around enough to know that humanity should be toast. At best, we should be living in caves eating gruel. At the worst, we should be, toast. But we're not. Because our potential has not been used up. We still have the potential to be what we could be. And this window of opportunity is what we got here. So that's why I'm doing this new series, right? Of overstanding above the paranormal, right? And tonight's cut is meeting remarkable creatures in the image of the mirror, right? So we're all creatures of our circumstance, right? Billy Clover, and he wasn't related to Madame Clover. I always said, "Is that your mother? Is that your sister?" And he would laugh. He goes, "No, it's just a It's like Smith. Certain type of folk have that last name, right? So let's see. So Saint Germain, Billy Kluver, Madame Olga Kluver. Those are three. Grandpa Stoll. That's four. These are all people who are basically folk out of time and space. They may be Homo sapiens sapien biologically, but spiritually, they're ascended folk. They have moved up the ladder a tad. Saint Germain has been around. Go study Saint Germain. Go Google Wikipedia Saint Germain, right? And Billy Kluver. See if you can find him, right? See if you can find Mike Stoll. Because with this little parody of in the Mandela effect, things change. A lot of people disappear from history. And I myself have been, the Forrest Gump of the interesting world. And you will find me in books and photographs and films all up and down the timeline. But I never went to be, famous, infamous. I may be infamous, but not famous. And in certain circles, I am somewhat famous. But that wasn't, I didn't want to be a A-lister. I didn't want to be on the red carpet because Madame Olga Kluver, once we went to an opening at the Guggenheim, and they actually had a friggin' red carpet, and she wouldn't step on it. She was like, and I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Here, we're going to go in the back door." And I said, "What do you mean?" She then explained what the red carpet was. Vlad the Impaler, he would take people's bodies and open them up, their front, and let their guts spill out. So when people would come and visit, and their carriages would come in, and from where they would be let off, he would have this path of guts and blood up the steps, into the entry hallway, into the ballroom of blood and guts. And if he couldn't stomach that, no matter who you were. And that's how we could tell who was the blue bloods, because those guys were reptiles. They were happy to, tramp on Homo sapiens sapien red blood, right? So, and these are the issues. These are the times. These are the people that we are surrounded with, that are ruling, they are the ownership class. And the guys, what people don't realize, the Rockefellers, J.P. Morgans, the Pierpoints, the Rothschilds, the Queen of England, they aren't the ownership class. They are the managerial class. The ownership we don't even get to see. They're underneath. Like when I took you guys into Lucifer's office building in hell, and we went up to the top floor of the pyramid corporate structure, and we went into the boardroom. Those were the ownership class. And if you go into your Akashic record, back to that little journey we took, you will see them. So, right now, it is 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 24, 5, 6, 7 seconds. So, we're going into state, and I am going to introduce you to Madame Olga Kluver. I'm going to take you into her curiosity shop. I'm going to walk you down Lexington Avenue and into her shop, right? So everyone get comfy, put yourself in a chair, put yourself in a seat, relax, put yourself in a safe position. Hold on. I gotta move a little bit. I'm starting to rust. Oh yeah. Okay, let us go. So, everyone, you're in your comfy, protected, safe positions, and you are breathing that 20% in and that 30% out. And one, you're in a deep state of relaxation. Your conscious mind totally focused on your breath. See it clearly. You're breathing in that prana, the life force of the universe, of love's co-creation. And you're breathing it into your lungs, deeply into all those little areolas, and your heart is pumping that red blood through your lungs. You're going deeper and deeper into a state of conscious relaxation. And the deeper you breathe in, that 20% more than your autonomic system, you're shutting down the squirrel in the cage of your Rolodex mind. And you're letting go. And you're leaving your avatar, your bag of water. And you're illuminating yourself with that prana. See that prana go through your lungs. Your heart is pumping the red blood, rich in iron. And the prana is, saturating your blood. And as the blood gets pumped through the arteries and veins and capillaries, you see it's not glub, glub, glub. It is swirling, just like that purple swirl, that bluish purple swirl. And the first swirl goes clockwise around the wall of the veins and arteries and capillaries. And inside that swirl goes another swirl counterclockwise. And inside of that swirl, there's another swirl going clockwise. And what does that do? That is a polyphased alternating current of scalar energy. And that prana is energizing every cell of your body. And you see in your imaginary mirror every cell, and the mitochondria, the battery of each cell, is just jumping with little lightning bolts. And that energy is creating photonic light. And photonic light is the light of love's unconditional forgiveness and love's co-creation. And as the good book says, in the beginning, all things were dark. And what is dark? And you look at what physics say darkness is, what dark matter is the representation of every frequency of photonic energy, every color, every band, everything, and it makes the darkness. Whereas the light that we perceive as light is really shadow light. It is the light that was created when Lucifer lost his shit, because love's co-creation created a consciousness with free will, because love's co-creation wanted to co-create with a consciousness that could have free will to choose whether to co-create or not. Because up when things were just all darkness, that's where love's co-creation existed, and everything in it existed in a frame of a rule. Everyone followed this rule, a hegemony of heaven. And Lucifer was the number one archangel. And when love's co-creation, and that, I don't like to use the word God because in Sumerian it means demon. So the true essence of the great creator is love's co-creation. And when love's co-creation made a consciousness with a free will, Lucifer lost his shit, because you love that thing more than me. I am perfect. How could you love that thing more than me? And he broke heaven's hegemony. And that's what a gigantic lightning bolt on the collar of the SS soldier, right? The Nazis, they have this double S, and what are those? Are two lightning bolts. That's the Luciferian light, the illumination. And so when people go, oh, I'm a light worker, what they're talking about is that they are a servant of Lucifer. Everything in this universe that we are in the material world of illusion, is just that, an illusion. And what it is, because love's co-creation created Lucifer, and Lucifer created with the big bang of his childish being pissed off, created this universe. It's 6,000, it's, 6,000 billion years old. That's nothing. That's like a snap of the fingers of eternity. 6,000 billion years is not an eternity. It's like just a blink of an eye, and linear time doesn't even exist. And every time I went visiting, you know, Saint Germain, I kind of was shown that freaking time doesn't exist. I'd spend hours with him, and it never stopped being noon. And I saw, lots of stuff happening. Blink, 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 blink. Time speeds up, time slows down, time goes backwards, and I would be taught lessons. Same with Madame Olga Kluver. She could do similar things, but she was apparatus. One man's science is another man's magic. I mean, we would walk through mirrors and glass to get to where we were going in time and space. And she never quite explained the physics of it all to me, because I didn't need to know that, right? She only explained things I needed to know, right? And most of the things she would explain to me were the nuts and bolts of how to see things, how to be awake, how not to be a mud puppet. Right? And still, I was, come on, at my best, I can be 80% awake, The average human being is awake maybe 1%, right? So that's why I'm your Sensei Al Bob. I'm not your ascended master Al Bob. I'm your Sensei Al Bob. Leading by example by keeping my eye on the ball. What is the ball that I am most attuned to within the construct of you, my adepts, the cadre? So I want to show you the things you need to see, so you can be that pebble in the pond bringing forth the tsunami of love's co-creation. Because that's what we're here for. We're not here for, even though I tell the general audience, hey, this is just for entertainment's sake. Well, yes, a griot teaches through telling a story, right? But my purpose to do this is to lead you by example so you can be the best you can be. You can step out of your deluded mud puppet state and be that, not just an adept, send to your conscious free will. And you can choose nanosecond by nanosecond to be your better self, right? And every day and every way, you will take the piece of the earth and make it stronger through love's co-creation. And you will ask the great Creator, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. As it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners, now in the hour of our death. Amen. As it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be. Aho. And with those two prayers, you are protected, right? And you are led by love's co-creation. So here you are, right? So what do you got to ask, Madam Olga Kluver? what do you want to see? You know? So here I am. What do you think? This is how I really seem. This is what I really look like. Did you see how I shapeshifted a little? Hmm? Did you see that? I just showed you the presence of my higher self, right? So, what do you got to say about it, right? What questions you got? What do you want to ask Madam Olga Kluver? It's right in front of you. You know, you're in your Akashic record. You know, if for some reason all you have to do is go look in your Akashic record and it's on the screen, you know, you can go visit her anytime you want. You can go talk to, Saint Germain anytime you want. You can go to your superconscious mind, the sanctuary of your own choosing, and go to your gazebo and have an overstanding on any question. That's what it's there for, to overstand. See it clearly. Oh. Yep, all that hero worship is gross. You know, an illusion. It's a wrong way to go. Yes, energy is alive because that's what you are, energy. You're alive. Well, again, why do we exist in the illusion? Because it's a sandbox. It's a place where we can actually safely experience things because what's the worst that can happen? You frigging die and come back again. You know? It's like, and the better you get at it, the more you won't die, you know, which is, it's good and bad, I've died 6 times and every time it takes a little chunk out of me, makes me a little sore, it's just like losing these 3 teeth, Every day it feels better, it gets better and I can actually talk and look, it's now been an hour and 41 minutes instead of a half an hour, which was about the last 3 times we did a chat, it couldn't last more than an hour, but I'm doing better. So that's why, what's the point of existing in an illusion? It's because it's a safe sandbox for our consciousness to practice things in, right? And like I said, what's the worst can happen? You can die, right? So it means you get another avatar, right? And if you stay awake when you die, you get to choose what you want to do, right? Because it doesn't really matter whether you come back to Earth or any other part of the universe. You can go to someplace else, you can go to, you know, Saturn or, Jupiter or Mars or any of the other planets in our solar system. And there are people, spirits, things there. You can go to all of the lands that, you can go to Shambhala. You can go to the land of the 8 kings of magic. You can go anywhere you want. And if you stay awake, aware, you'll learn even more. And that was the lesson of me being with Madame Olga Kluver in her land of mirrors and glass, translucent barriers, you know. So, any other interesting questions we want to start chatting about? Because I'm sticking around till 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 2 seconds. Another 15 minutes or so. Let's hear some chatting you got? Okay. So, two, you've illuminated yourself in your imaginary mirror, and I want you to now shine that photonic light into your Akashic record, your library of your Akashic record. I know it's a learning ground, but it's funny how our memories are erased. They don't have to be, you know. They don't. I mean, there are lots. I worked with lots of kids who, at a young age, could remember past lives. You know. And again, you can go to your. And that's where I'm taking you now to your Akashic record. And I want you to. You're there at your reading table. You're sitting down. Your librarian brings your Akashic record, you open it up, you put your right hand on the right blank page, your left on the left blank page, you lean into your Akashic record, and you evacuate all your anger, your fear, and your anxieties, all of your negative emotions, right? Now, we're not going to close the book. Close the book and then open it up. Because when you close the book, it's like a switch, and now all of those negative emotions are no longer in you. But I want you to open them up now and look at them, right? Take a good look and see where they come from, what they're forced from, what their illusion is, and how you can take that illusion and manifest the reality you want, how you can navigate this life, see it clearly, right? Do. Yep, glad the records are here, and they really are. And you guys need to start going there on your own and going into your Akashic record and seeing it and starting to take notes and starting to, clear yourself. And all of these things like Scientology, they use all the nomenclature. I mean, all of this stuff that I've shown you. It's not like I invented any of this. This is arcane knowledge that's been around forever, right? I'm just giving you, the value of my experience, right? Because I am your sensei, Al Bob. That's what a sensei does. He imparts their experience. He leads by example, or she. He, she, or it leads by example, right? And the thing about Madame Olga Kluver, looking at her, you could not, she was an ancient. I had no idea what real, I mean, she liked being called Madam, and she had a feminine, aura about her, but she didn't look like your basic, she wore, a 19th century, tuxedo, you know, and it was a business suit of that period of time. I forget a morning coat or something like that. It's like what undertakers would wear in the earliest part of the 20th century. She didn't have the top hat. She didn't like hats, but she really had this beautiful hair, and everything about her was striking, and just I don't even know the word to use. More than attractive, more than beautiful. Just she kind of took your breath away. Same thing with Saint Germain. I mean, when you first looked at him, walking up to him, he looked like he was a homeless guy. But it was like Grandpa Stoll. I mean, when you first see him, he was this really tall guy in his pajamas. But once you hung out with him, you realize the best thing he could be wearing was his silk pajamas. And that's because these people owned who they were. They were never trying to impress anyone. Source of all creation, and we are part of that. That's the real lesson. Because of our conscious free will, we are part of all that creation. Most people, are so, I have to look this way. I need to have those clothes. I got to buy that. I got to be this. No. They need to be who they are. were intense, like they were trying to drain my energy and make me fearful, calling my guides and did the breathing. It all subsided. Okay, there you go. And that's kind of, again, this is, you are, there's nothing to fear, you know? Like I said, all the monsters are just on the side of our peripheral vision. When you look at them, they're like right there, and then you look at them, they're gone, And that was, my grandma took me to see the movie Forbidden Planet. She made me sit in the friggin' front row, so I looked straight up and got a sore neck. I was looking. I could see each frame of the 70 millimeters, and I could tell that the monster was, you know, etched on. That's why it's a 70 millimeter film because they needed that space to animate the monster on the frame. Each of those friggin' frames, right? That's how they did it. And when you were in the back of the house or in the middle of the house, it looked like a really scary monster because we went back and saw the movie again so she could show. We sat in the back, so it looked really amazing. But in that front row, you could see all the little, the gaffs and the little tricks they did to make the monster. And that's what monsters are. They're gaffs and tricks of the illusion of Lucifer. They don't exist. And because Lucifer not only projects into your mind, it reads that consciousness and it looks for whatever weakness there is and plays with it. So you're attacked by ominous orbs, which is like, what the fuck is an ominous orb? It says as amorphous as you could get, but scary. Ooh, what is the ominous orb? And then the energies were intense, like they were trying to drain your energy. Of course, that's what they were trying. They were going after that what they were drawn to was that photonic light that was your mitochondria being energized by the the prana. And that's what these guys do. That's why they terrorize people, because they terrorize you, totally freak you out, then kill you. And at the point of killing you, they drink your blood because your blood is just this cocktail of hormones of fear. And that's what gives them power. So if you just go, get lost. Like, the movie Monsters, Inc. was perfect because it showed that little guy, the little baby, was not scared of the monsters, realized that they were cute and nice from the inside. Put myself in a difficult situation so I can overcome it. Exactly, Dragon. It was an exercise that your superconscious mind put you through. What is that word? I can't even pronounce it. I only got 6 teeth left, Give me the 411 on that word, dear dragon. Whatever it's called. It's like to have 6 teeth. It really is amazing. I try to say certain vowels and I start to whistle. Yes, exactly. The drug of it's a part of your cortisol, and it's this cocktail of your cortisol and your adrenaline, and that's the thing that they drink. It's the hormone of fear, and the fear is totally illusionary, and that's why they play us. I mean, that's why we are in this avatar state rather than our true self, the adrenaline gland. Yep, exactly. And that's why these guys are monsters. I mean, the real monster is, there is no real monster except these morons who do this really fucked up shit because it gives them a rush. Where if they only knew how to breathe 20% in and 30% out, they'd get more of a rush doing that. They so limit themselves by doing this stupid shit, getting so stuck because those morons, they are not, like I said, they are not the owners. They're not even the the guys who are the management class. The management class does even weirder shit than these guys who are in the worker drone class. You know, the guys who are, you know, 33-degree masons, you know, they're just bricklayers, you know. And see how time is slowed down? It's not even, it's 1 hour and 53 minutes. It's like 40 minutes have gone by, and it's really in the on my little time clock over there. It's only been 3 minutes, you know. So this was the first episode, you know, the meeting of. Oh, I have to read it off the thing there. Uh, Meeting of remarkable creatures in the image of the mirror. It's like Gurdjieff and Ouspensky's meeting of remarkable men, right? I'm kind of making a play on it. Where is the kind? Well, there's six of us, you know, and a lot of people, you know, because the cadre is from all over the freaking universe, they're in a lot of different times. Some are asleep, some are at work, some are just waking up, some are in the shower. And it's very interesting because, like, the last, I guess this morning, I had maybe 7 people, 6 people. But when I looked at it this afternoon, 100 people watched it. So a lot of people go and watch it. And that's the beauty of these, you know, before I do this, I prepare shamanically. So when you're not part of the chorus, you can still be part of the cadre and part of the shock troops of love's co-creation, because you're watching this thing. You can go into state and go and, you know, have that same experience, because these videos are timeless. They don't exist in time, right? That's right. You know, we've been talking now for a good 30 minutes, and really my little timer says it's only been 4 minutes. Yes. A lot of what is can't be explained with the limited language, you know. And the folks who, and not too many. I mean, there is this strange thing happening where, you know, on the average there are a few thumbs up, because I'm not really concerned about thumbs up or thumbs down. But there's somebody, you know, there's 5 or 6 thumbs up with everything, and then, you know, the last 10 there's been, you know, 15, 20 thumbs down. I know that, you know, mathematically that's an impossibility. What is kind of interesting to me is that we have caught someone's attention, right? Now they tried to send the Yoda creature to diss us, but we just loved it and it left. And so they're not sending anyone into the chat because they know we'll pick it apart. We'll use our psychosocial, cultural, forensic, entomologic alchemy to take it apart, and we will put it on the frame of the, you know, shamanic. So they're not going there, but they are present. They are watching. They are energetically, you know, trying to. But that has no real frame, and so they can, all they can do is thumbs down, and big deal. Who cares? You know, I don't even know what thumbs up, thumbs down means. I don't know. You know, I'm like the caveman lawyer. You know. Yes, they want me, but can't have you, because you're part of the cadre. You know, you're part of the chorus. You're a shock troop of love's co-creation. Everybody here has got each other's back. We are like the 300 Greeks who, you know, stood up against the horde of the Persians. There were quarter million, 500,000 guys who were defeated by 300 Greeks, you know? So we can, you know, and through love's co-creation, all is possible. We are that pebble in the pond of love's tsunami. Yep. So, and, you know, we are in a frame of co-creating, and with each show, it gets better. With each show, it develops. With each show, the cadre becomes a stronger and stronger adept, moving, ascending their consciousness to that awoken free will. And it's not like in a future or past tense. We are the overcoming. We are, because we are creating with love's co creation. We, so say we all, we are in that space where we are. It's not like we're going to be, we are. That's it. We are, period. That's it, right? And like I said, what's the worst that can happen? We die. So we come back over and over again. And from this point on, when you come back, you got a choice. You can pick what you want to do, how you want to do it, because you'll be awake. Just like Buddha on the side of the road and the travel, well, man, what are you, God? And Buddha said, no, I'm awake. And that's what we are. Now, we are physically in this little bag of water here, but we're overcoming it, meaning we no longer feel alone. We are no longer alone. We have each other. We've got each other's backs. And we're not, earlier when I started this spring, summer, and fall, when I was in the deep green, I wanted you guys to all, because from my experiences of being with tribal folk, I wanted, and we're not a tribe. We're a cadre. Big difference, right? We're a chorus. We sing, We are the shock troops of love's co-creation. These are three different things. These are the three pillars of all our relations, right? And so we are. We're not going to be. We're not a future tense. We are we are, period. So the fact that we're all over the friggin' planet in different time zones, different places, different everything, that is an amazing thing. 369, exactly. We're not only 369, but 24/7. And so we can see it coming. We can not accept, but be living with grace, gratitude, humility, and what is it when you welcome people home? That is, you are, what is that word? When you give people a meal, when you're great, there's a word for that. When you're a good host. What's the next word after being a good host? Sharing your bounty. Because when you share your bounty, you receive even more. Hospitality. Thank you, Dragon. That's the word. And that's what we are. We are gracious with great gratitude, and we share with hospitality. And that's why I love the Islamic culture, because their number one thing is hospitality. I would love to see Christians, what are Muslims, but they are basically Christians on steroids. They are a monotheistic religion based on the Old and New Testament with, their Quran, which is, little historical relevance of who and what they are through a cultural sense. And, Muhammad, the great prophet, who I truly love, his teachings, what I really love is his grandchildren. His grandson and his granddaughter stood up, where the schism of Islam, the Sunni and Shiite, come. There was a character in that history who created that schism, right? And these two, the grandchildren of Muhammad, stood up to this dude and didn't have an army. They just kind of walked into his camp and said, okay, motherfucker. But they did it with love, especially the granddaughter. She was so eloquent that she like, it was like, telling them what it was and drop the microphone. You should go read that. It is like beautiful. Now, I am not Islamic, you know, but I love that history. I love the scripture. I love the literature, right? Just as I love the Old Testament and the New Testament in the Logos, in the Word, not in the dogma, not in the religious, you know, you know, hierarchy. No, in the representation of love's co-creation. And Islam is a loving religion. Now, all of this death and terribleness is not Islam. Sorry, you know. So, and I don't believe in anything except love's co-creation. All those religions are just part of the illusionary world of the Luciferian. Now, again, love's co-creation manifested all of this. The great creator made all of this. And I am not a person who can tell you the teachings, what the great creator meant or means or wants to do. That's not part of my, pay package. I am here to serve love's co-creation. For love is the manifestation within the construct of what we can, connect to in our limited, because we're still ascending. We are not perfect. We haven't come to that perfection. We are in the process. But we are in the process. We are ascending. We haven't reached that place. We are ascending, right? So in the construct of the illusion, we are. But in the construct of love's co-creation, we are co-creating. So here we are. Well, see, and look at that. In what I felt was about a minute, 10 minutes have passed. I love it when this happens. So I'll keep going if you guys got more stuff to say. So Dragon has been, being Dragon and saying some great stuff. So where's the rest of you guys? Come on. There's 6 of you. Dragon, so there's 5 of you out there. Come on, say something there. Sarah, where are you? Fletch, where are you? Do. Well, you're here, Sarah. Good. So what do you got to say? We've been discussing some interesting things here. I got as much time. My jaw doesn't hurt, and I'm not that tired. So if we can continue on with an interesting conversation, I'll stick around. If not, I will say come and join me in dream time because I'm gonna go off to sleep. And boop, 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 boop. Okay, I'm going to kind of count you back into your avatars. So, and 2, you're in a deep state of relaxation. You're in your Akashic records. You're looking at your Akashic record. I want you to see anything that you can get from it. Here, poor pass of life. I have heard of it. I would love it, Dragon, if you could tell me the 4 paths of life. Bring it to us. And 2, you're in a deep state of relaxation. The book of your Akashic record is open. The screens are lit up. You can access any information you want. You can bring forth any question you want from your subconscious mind, see it clearly. Your librarian will bring you any information you need. Your totem will bring forth any explanation you need, and your guardian angel always has your back. Come on, Dragon. What are the four paths of life? Boo, 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 boo. Do, 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 do. Darkness to light, light to darkness, light to light, dark to dark. Dark means evil path, light means good path. Well, of course, in my sense of things, none of that is, that's part of the illusion. Where did that four paths of life come from? Who published that one? What philosophy? What dogma? What hegemony is talking about that? You know, because dark means evil. Not so much. That seems pretty racist to me. Because within the construct of physics, dark is the presence of every frequency of photonic energy, period. That's physics, right? Physics doesn't say that's evil. It's just the presence of every energy. Where light, the kind of light that we see, any light that gives a shadow is Luciferian. It's a Hindu thing, I think, but I don't believe anything. You're picking it up. But we are both here to be in balance, exactly. And that's why, the circle with the squiggly line, black, white, light dot in the black, and a black dot in the white, is that good, relevant representation of balance. The yin yang. Yep, exactly. And the dots are, the darkness is the darkness, the light is the light, and the two dots are chaos. The circle is the event horizon of the creation of the universe, and the little S squiggly thing is the path of life. That's it. And neither is good or bad. It's just the balance of life. It's what it is. It's what we're here to experience. It's the sandbox. That's all it is. It's not good or bad. Good or bad are irrelevant. You're waking up. Yep. And just keep waking up. That's all you got to do. Just keep breathing that 20% more and breathing out that 30%, getting rid of all the, you eliminate more toxins with your breath than any other way, And as long as you consciously breathe that way, you'll be more and more awake. Well, that's why I'm 80% awake, because 80% of the time I'm breathing that way. At 20% when I'm a moron is when I forget to breathe that way. I just kind of go into, oh yeah, whatever, So, and one reason I am doing 2 of these live chats a day is that I have to prepare about an hour before, and then I, spend another hour afterward deconstructing it, and all of that time I'm awake. I am shamanically awake. Hey, Jane. Yep, the yin yang. Yep. Oh, boo. The glamour of grammar. You know what spelling is? It's a spell. Before the Tower of Babel, we all were psychic. No one lied, cheat, or stole because we could all read each other's minds. You couldn't lie, you couldn't steal, you couldn't cheat because everyone was, oh boy, look at that, right? And then not Satan, Lucifer threw in another curveball of illumination, and now we're totally confused. We're separated by languages, by logos. That's why they call it spelling. Exactly, it's a spell. So, have you guys went and read my writings on xratted.blogspot.com? You will see that everything I write there is a metaphor. Everything I do there is shamanically breaking the spell, and because a lot of people go, boy, you can't spell. Why do you instead of using periods, you use semicolons everywhere, and you run words into each other? Why do they cannot see the trees for the forest, right? Because everything I do in there is super conscious. I'm doing everything on freaking purpose. Everything in those pieces are metaphors. They are more than just a story. Just like these live chats are shamanic ceremonies. Why you guys get so much from it, from my moron stories? No. I mean, they're kind of entertaining, but they're shamanic energetically. You're seeing them. You're there. You're experiencing them. It's more than you get from a movie, more than you get from, anything else. Why? Because I am shamanically preparing the story and then I just lay it down, and that's what a griot does. And the wasteland is not so much a wasteland. The wasteland is that, again, between the different dimensions, like I said, whenever you see the monster, it's just on your peripheral vision. The wasteland is like that peripheral vision before you really step up into what it is. Yes, that's what I try and do. Shamanic writing prophet visions. Yep, 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 yep. Well, that's why I want you guys to go read the stuff because it gives a real shamanic platform / window to look through to then come back to these things and go, oh, look at that. It's like lifting another veil. It's like an onion skin, right? They just knew. Exactly. I told the story about the Nazis sending me to this tribe in the middle of the rainforest in 1988 when the rainforest had only been maybe 20 to 27% decimated. Now it's like 90% decimated, 95% decimated. And this tribe I went to see had never, ever, ever been even touched by white people. They never even heard it from other folk. They kind of knew it energetically. That's it. They knew that this force of another culture, another people, another this, another that, and they were time travelers themselves. And their language, I mean, I went there and they did not know Portuguese. They did not know Spanish, English. They didn't know any kind of other, and their language was pictorial. Right? Was all nouns. They had no verbs, and basically, I learned their language, you know, telepathically, because the majority of their language, it's like when you're with a good friend and you finish each other's sentences. That's how I learned their language, and I didn't learn how to speak it. I just learned it. Like an energy overload. Uh, it's overload represents it's an energy waterfall. It's like this tremendous flow, but it's not really an overload. It's not like you can't handle it, you know? Can't lie about the vibe. And that's, a lot of people, not a lot, all of you in the cadre and the chorus and the shock troop of Love's co-creation are part of the story that I tell us a griot. And that's what a griot does. It gets the audience to be part of the story. So there is no like, oh, he's lying, or oh, that couldn't have happened. Oh, this, the griot manifests through a shamanic ceremony the ability of the listener to suspend their disbelief. Now, folks who can't do that are stuck in their little hegemony of their worldview. And not too many, but a few people go, well, I can't believe, there are a few people, if you go read the comments, after the video, and I then, email, because I can then email them and I send, or message them and I send them a message. And then they come back to me and go, and they like apologize. Radar love. Exactly. That's what it is. Radar love. And they apologize because I don't, attack them for how they, and they sheepishly attack me, not like menacingly, but, how could this be? And then I explain them how it could be. And then I do it in a shamanic ceremonial way. And they come back almost crying, like, I can see it now, right? There hasn't been a single person who has, like, gone, oh, you suck, I'll never. So that's why it's very interesting to me that all of these thumb down, because it's again coming from either a digital, bot of some sort representing the powers that shouldn't be, because they can't step into the light, not the light, the photonic energy of the cadre because it scares them. And I'm saying, I am inviting you guys, I'm inviting all of the monsters to come on in, just like Monsters Inc. They're not monsters, they just look a little different. Because we are all part, when I keep talking about all our relations, even the ownership class are part of all our relations, because everything in this illusionary universe was created by love's co-creation. And we have all the time in the world to get to that place where we can bust the bubble outside the box. Don't even know where the box is. That's right. That's a great thing for sure. Yep. Yes, and that's part of the Great Link. But it's not a separate thing because, see, as a consciousness, there is an individuality. That individuality is part of this collective. It's like we are a collection of our parts. We are a part of that great, collective consciousness that Jung was talking about. Jung's work is, you should go read Jung because he is really much clearer, and because that was his whole trip, he's really very good at describing the dynamics of, because he doesn't try, he describes within his own construct what the collective consciousness is made of all these parts without them being separate, right? Yeah. Or the diamond that has many, you know, what do they call facets, right? That's a good one. It's like the diamond that has many different facets, connected but all different, right? Right? Exactly. And the difference is our individual free will. We get to choose whether we want to be, you know, a mud puppet or whether we want to take the path to ascend to our higher consciousness of being part of that, consciously part of that collective conscious. to be connected, but all different. I like the idea of the diamond with different facets. I like that. Oh, look at that. 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds. Right when I like that synchronicity of it all. Okay. Oh, my arms are getting tired. Uh, so, gang, what, you know, path, you know, I'm not going to, I'm starting this new series, but I'm not going to do it night after night. And I'm going to drop them in a little because we got 3 series going here, right? We got the 40 days and 40 nights. We have the open window of opportunity, and we have, the meaning of remarkable creatures, the, you know, overstanding of above paranormal, right? So let's kind of try to put them together and come up with a strategy to create, because those 3 things are the 3 legs, and I think our chair may have more than 3 legs, of the new aesthetic, of the alternative aesthetic. Because that's the kind of tool we have to develop. What makes us different from other creatures is tools. We're tool makers. Well, screw that. Monkeys, the chimpanzee is a tool maker. He takes a stick, he sticks it down the hole, he gets all the ants. If that's not a tool, I don't know what is. The aardvark uses tools. Ants use tools, and they're even better because they genetically engineer glues and pheromones and all kinds of things to do all kinds of stuff. Insects are the best tool makers because they are really, you think we make, they so outshine us, and here we are destroying them with the most, and if we wipe out the insects, say goodbye to us, because we are, all our relations are put here. We all need each other. That's the real deal. We all need each other. That is part of that collective consciousness of the, multifaceted of the diamond. We all need each other. And I think that's one of the major foundations of our alternative aesthetic. We have to define. So that's why I have been, in the beginning of this, go back and watch this video. I spent the first 3 or 4 minutes having, I have about 800 of these white papers that I got paid to write about all kinds of stuff over my years of being a scholar. And I got them all, on thumb drives, on hard drives, all over the place. And my stuff on XRATTED is only one novel of 26, and it's only 3/4 of it. I didn't put the last quarter because I didn't want to confuse folks, So the more you digest that and see it as the shamanic metaphor, and you can use that as the key. Remember when I was telling you the story of the old crone, and I was looking at an ancient book, and I was looking for the key, and she saw me doing it. She said, and she came looking for me because energetically, she said, somebody's in that library. I need to learn. I need to know. I need to meet. And so there was a whole library full of people looking at books, and she looked around and she saw me. And I was the only guy twisting the book around in circles looking for the key on that page. And so, she goes, oh. And that's when she tried to scare me by looking like, a monstrous, bag lady, And she kept, every time she got closer to me, sneaking up on me, and I'd look back, and she'd, what are you looking at? Until like we were almost nose to nose. What are you looking at? And then she said, oh, you're a tricky young man. You're looking for the key. And I said, yes, ma'am. And she goes, she turned it around and she pointed at one symbol. And she goes, and she didn't say anything. And I said, oh. And I took that and I then placed it where it should go and started to decode that page. And that's when she knew I was the guy she was looking for. She didn't tell me what it was. She just pointed at it. She didn't tell me how to do it. You know how those IT guys just take your computer away from you and fix it without telling you how they did it? She didn't know. She wanted to see what I could figure out for myself. How do you look for keys again? Okay. Um, that will be tomorrow morning's storyline about looking at keys, because I want to look at a few things before I describe it to you. I have to go to my own Akashic record. Not Tick Science mentions Akashic record, Rosicrucians, etc. Right, right. And all those kind of, and I would call Rosicrucianists and not, I don't have enough teeth to pronounce it, but those are esoteric, right? From the lineage of that stuff, right? And none of those things are bad. None of them are perfect, and none of them are the answer, but they are a key, right? And within the Hebrew text of the Torah, if we look at Kabbalah, Kabbalah is all about keys, and it's mathematical. That's why I was so interested in studying it, and why I learned Hebrew, and why I let my rabbi, put me in his Lubavitcher school, because I wanted to learn that. And he wanted me there because I was his only student who was disciplined and passionate enough to study Kabbalah, right? And that I wasn't looking to be powerful, to make a golem or get power, like Solomon was. What I wanted to only do was understand. So it would give me the ability to take one more forward step. That's why I did that. It took 6 years of my life to do that. Now, my rabbi was a great guy. He exposed me to so many other things. He, put me in a Lubavitcher. I was sitting in this room with all these guys in black coats and black hats and payas, and I was wearing, I Love New York T-shirt and sneakers, and cut off jeans. And they were all like horrified, and he was the head rabbi of this whole sect of Hasidim. And, so they couldn't diss what he wanted. He was the head dude. And after, a year, pretty much, I was accepted because I did not at all mistrust or diss their culture. I respected it, and just like every other culture I've lived in, I've respected it and looked at the things I could, share and identify and realize I had more in common with that than I didn't have in common with it. When I lived in North Africa, why Muslim people really liked me was that I was not the ugly American. I was ready, willing, and wanted to understand their culture and to share in it and respect it. I went to their homes and respected their hospitality. And I actually, ran into some, very orthodox people, very, when you go past orthodoxy, you become, what do they call it? Militant or whatever. And I could basically negotiate with those folks, to parse. That's what I would call it, parsing, I would listen to what they said. I would respect what they said. I would come in understanding overstanding what they said, and brought forth to them that idea of overstanding. which got them from being underneath things. And they got above it and said, oh, I can see what you're talking about. Ergo, I don't want to kill you. I actually like you. Yes, you are different. Yes, but even though you're different, you have these human similarities that I can identify with. This is pretty cool. I like this. I need to take you to my, head dude, and we can have tea. And I would. We'd have tea and little, cakes. And even those guys would be, huh, well, this is quite interesting. You know, some, people would say I'd have to kill you, but I don't want to. I like you. You're different, but you're the same. And that's quite interesting. And I can see in my scripture, it says right here, I should be looking at a person who respects me and I respect you. Well, this is interesting. And the reason why these wars go on is that the powers that shouldn't be don't respect any of this because they want conflict. They don't want harmony. And within the text of every freaking literature, every religion, every orthodoxy, every dogma, every hegemony, there is this point of protocol of balance. That's the yin yang. It's balance. And when you take with respect and try to overstand their cultural dynamic in a reference where we are, human beings. We're not the other. That's where harmony comes. No matter how orthodox or how whatever the word it is that references people as being violent. No, you don't have to be violent. The orthodoxy doesn't call for that. And now, if you are traumatized to the point where you just want to kill, well, that gets it a little more difficult. When you from your earliest memory can only remember, a drone obliterating your family, and you're the only one left, and you got this big scar on your face to remind you of that day after day after day, and that it's constantly you're still getting bombed. Yes, I would get a little pissed off too, right? But I don't let myself be put in that situation. And folks who are in that situation, I go towards them, not away from them, to help them get out of that situation, because my whole thing is to heal, you know. I'm the doctor of love. Okay, we're moving right along to 3 hours. We're getting close. Let's see, what we said last? The more in harmony, the higher your frequency, much better feeling. No kidding. Yep. Instead of that constant nagging anxiety of fear and frustration, ick. Draconian angles have keys. Yes, very true, Jane. So say we all. The more in harmony, the higher the frequency, much better feelings. Yep. And that's every step of that higher frequency. It's upon the ladder of ascending to our consciousness's free will. And that's when you're vibrating totally in that frequency of love's co-creation. And when you vibrate in that frequency, there is no fear, There is no, you can go into any place and find harmony. You can go into a den of vipers and find harmony, That scene from Kung Fu when Caine steps into a pit of vipers and he walks through them without getting bit because he's in harmony with those vipers. And he does that so these people won't kill each other. He says, okay, I'm going to step down in this pit. And they go, well, you're going to die. He goes, well, if I don't die, then you're not going to kill this other person, right? Sure, go ahead, step in that pit. See what I can. You know, if you can get out of that without dying, I won't kill this other guy. And that's what he does because he's in harmony with a pit full of viperous snakes. Saying the master finds peace in chaos. Yep. You know, that's part of the chaos theory, you know. That's why the yin yang, in the black swirl, there's a white dot. In the white swirl, there's a black dot. Those dots are chaos. And if there isn't chaos, you actually become a couch potato. Well, you know, the thing about chanting is that you have to find the frequency that is right for you, how it makes you vibrate. Each of those vowels of chanting, everyone's different. You know, it's like that thing I was telling you about where you have, you get an audio generator. You put it in an amplifier, and then you take a speaker and you put it this way so the cone is facing up. You fill it full of sand. You turn the volume down, and you click through all the different frequencies. And most of the frequencies will just make the sand kind of vibrate in the speaker, right? But every so often you come up to a frequency and you will see a sitchin, a pattern, a geometric pattern made of that sand, right? And if you look at that pattern and you hear that harmony, that frequency, some of them it's like, you know, nails on a blackboard. Others are like, ah. Everybody's different. One man, another man in that same, you know. So you basically have to go through that. You know, that's why they have those pitch little harmonicas so you can listen to them. That's why they have tuning forks so you can vibrate with them. And they all have their own power. And they all have their own effect differently on everybody. So there's another leg to our looking for the foundation for the alternative aesthetic. Harmonics, frequencies, right? Keys to opening the door. Those two things we're going to look at tomorrow. And I want you, as my adepts, to come with, I want you to go to sleep. I want you to go into dream state. I want you to go into your Akashic records and forget going into Wikipedia. Go into your Akashic records. The more you practice going into your Akashic record and bringing forth information because it's your Akashic record. That's where you're going to find some real. You want to know the key about something? Look in your Akashic record. You want to know the frequency of what, chanting? You should look in your Akashic record. You know, I'm your senseo Bob. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I am here to lead by example and keep your eye on your ball. You know? Yes. Tuning forks for healing. You know, and that's why crystals are powerful because they vibrate at frequencies. And they transmute photonic light. The light, fiber optics. The light coming out of fiber optics is photonic light. A laser pumped fiber optic photonic light. Now, the moment it comes out of that fiber, it goes through the illusion of Luciferian space and becomes more muddied. Right? And so that's why if you put that little fiber optic thing just on your skin in different points, acupressure points, I did a lot of work using, a pumped laser into a fiber optic, and instead of using needles, I used it doing acupuncture because I, went to school and I learned acupuncture, and I realized that you almost had to be Chinese to do. I mean, all these people. So I was at the Swedish Institute of Massage on 10th Street. I don't know if it's still there. And I was there as because I had all this training, and my boss from the VA sent me there to teach. He said, "Yeah, you need to learn how to teach." So I got you this gig. You're going to be the alternative healing teacher. You're going to teach herbs. You're going to teach all the stuff Sensei told you, all the stuff that Dr. Wong taught you, all the stuff, all these different teachers he turned me on to, who did alternative healing of different cultures, right? And so the best way you can learn something is to teach it, you know. And you get feedback from your students, and all of my teaching I didn't do with a book. I had no books. We did it. We created our own. Every class I did, we created our own textbook, and I wanted the students to go up and do the book learning and write it down in their own sense. So we put together a textbook. And I would teach with hands-on. We do, get out tables and put people on them. All the students would massage each other, would adjust each other, would, do acupressure. My thing is shiatsu, acupressure, um, kinesiology, craniosacral, energetics, Reiki, and other things. But I learned a whole bunch of other stuff, and I realized that for a number of reasons wasn't my thing. It's like, yes, I know how to divine things, pretty spot on, but I don't use tarot cards. I know I know what they are. I know how to use them. I can throw, things like astrology. I know it relatively well, but I don't do charts. I use both of those disciplines in my own kind of way. And my real tool, if any of those divining tool, it's reading tea leaves and the runes and reading palms and kinesiology, right? I muscle test people. And I can cold read their energies. I can just look at them. And it's a mixture of their body language and their tells and a whole bunch of other things that I use. And when we come eye to eye, I can't quite teach those things over the internet. I can energetically, I'm getting pretty good energetically sending you juice over this little platform here. But the things, where to pulpate a certain part, you got to feel me do it to you to really, that's the way to teach. You show the person by doing it to them and then having them do it to you. Give them feedback, they feel it, you do it, you keep doing that. So that's how I taught people healing, right? And everyone picked up what they most resonated with, and that's why I had a number of things I was good at that I taught them. And in my practice, that's why I'm a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist, because I use all of those things together, not one at a time. Because if you want to be a shrink, you can't just use, a manual like 90% of the shrinks do and then give you a drug. No. To understand somebody's psyche, you got to understand their social orientation. What they do for a job, what all their orientations are. Understand that. You understand their cultural dynamic, where they came from, where grandma, what things they had for Christmas, what celebrations, all of their cultural stuff, right? To understand that, you have to forensically take all those threads apart and look, because we are component, we're all made up of parts. And you learn more about the whole by looking at the parts and seeing how they fit together. Then you have to look at it, anthropologically, which is the discipline of taking off your ethnocentric glasses and looking at things forensically without the prejudice of your opinion. When I talk to people and listen to them, and I go, you're prejudiced. They go, what do you mean? Some of my friends are black. I said, no, that's racist. Prejudice is when you think your belief, your worldview is right. That's prejudice. When you think your opinion is right, that's prejudice. You're prejudiced by your opinion. You don't have an open mind. That's prejudice. And it takes a lot for people to get that one. And then alchemy. What is alchemy? Taking base metals and turning them into gold. Our base metal is our bag of water. It's a bag of water, a bunch of trace elements, mostly lead. And the gold is not, Dreckles. It is that thread that takes us to love's co-creation, to a higher conscious free will. That's the gold we're looking for. See it clearly. Okay, now I'm starting to get a little tired. And so I'm going to stop at 2 hours, 50 minutes, and 50 seconds. So I want you to, when I hang up here, I want you to take out your notebooks. And if you don't have one, you better get one. And if you don't have one and you're not going to get one, use your Akashic record to take notes. Don't assume you'll only make an ass out of you and me. Yep, we don't assume. No assumptions, no expectations. We just move forward. That's it. That's it. And we are. We're not going to be. We're not going to try. We are doing. We are and we're doing. Right? No assumptions, no expectations. We are and we are doing. Yep, I'm going to have a good sleep. Here it is, 2 hours, 50 minutes, counting down to 50 seconds. We're at 6 seconds. I love you guys. So sweet dreams. I'll see you in the morning. It'll be Saturday, so sometime between 9 and 11, I'll do my morning chat. So, take some notes, have some ideas. Let's have a good chat, right? Let's like jump into it, right? And go what I showed in the beginning of the 2 hours. Go back, watch this video, and go read what I put down there. Going to study fiber optic photons. Thank you, Sensei. Yep. I'm always here. Remember, you can get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42, and we can have a more, less than how many words that the chat lets you do. And if you want to talk in persona and you're in America, leave me your phone number and I'll give you a buzz. We can blab a while. You know me, I love to talk. So, going to study fiber optics, okay? And I'm going to go to sleep. And good night, Jane. Good night, Dragon. Good night, everybody on the chat, all 4 of you. And I'll see you later. Sweet dreams. Love you guys. You're the best. You're the cadre. You're the chorus. You're the shock troops. And okay, 3, you're awake. You're back here. You're safe in your bodies. All's good. Sarah, love you, baby. I want to learn about Reiki. Okay, Sarah, if you're in America, just leave me your phone number and I will. There's some really good books on Reiki. Go into your Akashic record and go find the Japanese guy who went up to the top of the mountain, spent 40 days up there. All these people find interesting things take 40 days. And he came off that mountain in Japan and he had Reiki before him. And he did it around the 1920s, give or take. Don't assume. Yep. Going to say yep. Good night, babes. Love you, Fletch. Love you all, Sarah, Jane, Dragon. Stay well. Good night. See you in the morning. Do.